what really happened to Rob and Michele Reiner. As a timeline for the murder emerges, the sad and gruesome details of their murder have been released. With a new diagnosis of schizophrenia, will Nick Reiner plead not guilty? Tune in tonight at 9 p.m. for a Southern Sin special investigation.
This is a Southern Sin breaking news special. Be sure to like and subscribe now.
Based on the information we now have, Nick Reiner is not going to plead guilty to these murders. He is going to plead not guilty by reason of insanity, and here's why. We have learned that Nick Reiner was diagnosed with schizophrenia, and he was under the care of a psychiatrist and receiving meds. His behavior in the month before the murders, and this is a quote from sources with direct knowledge, was erratic and dangerous. In the 3 to 4 weeks, and this is so important, in the 3 to 4 weeks leading up to the murders, Nick's medications were changed. And they were changed because he was exhibiting more and more erratic and dangerous behavior. But when they were changed, they weren't right. And it was making him, as one source put it, crazy. And, in addition to that, Nick was abusing substances, and we're told the substance abuse worsened the schizophrenia. Based on everything I know, this is not going to be a case where they contest that Nick did it. I think they're going to concede it. I don't know that for a fact, but all of the dots that we now have to connect lead us to this is not going to be a not guilty plea, I didn't do it. If I were a betting man, I would say this is a not guilty by reason of insanity.
New information released in the investigation into the murders of Rob and Michele Reiner. We now know where the couple was reportedly found dead inside their home on Sunday. Their son, Nick, is now in jail. He's facing 2 counts of first-degree murder. The 32-year-old has struggled with addiction for years, but it appears his parents did everything they could to help him until the end.
If your kid is going through rough times, you know, the parent is, your main job is to keep your child safe.
That is an interview from 9 years ago that Rob and Nick did for AOL after they released a movie that they had worked on together. It's a haunting clip to watch now, knowing what allegedly happened after a holiday party attended by the Hollywood elite. The causes of death for Rob and Michele Reiner confirm the fears of what the final moments were like for a Hollywood power couple. It's now official that the medical examiner in Los Angeles has ruled the Reiners' deaths to be homicides. Now, that's not a surprise considering everything that's been reported to this point, but it's really the way that they were allegedly killed that is just so disturbing, and where in their home they reportedly were found. Now, before I get into that part of the story, I want to get you the latest information on the legal front involving their son, Nick, who is now facing 2 counts of first-degree murder in the deaths of his parents. The charges also carry special circumstances for there being more than one victim. The Los Angeles District Attorney, he did mention the death penalty at a news conference earlier this week when he announced the charges, but it's important to note that there's a moratorium on the death penalty in California since 2019, and no one has been put to death in that state since 2006. Right now, Nick is in the LA County Jail. He did make his first court appearance yesterday on Wednesday, and he is being represented by a powerful name, and that is Alan Jackson. That's the same attorney who defended Karen Reed in her trials when she faced charges for allegedly killing her Boston police officer boyfriend, John O'Keefe. Now, Jackson got a not guilty verdict in the case of Karen Reed, but this case, it could be more difficult. Now, these are courtroom sketches of Nick Reiner. Yesterday, the judge said that the cameras in the courtroom could not take pictures of him. He was wearing a blue vest that is often worn by defendants to prevent them from harming themselves. Jackson told the judge that it was too soon to enter a plea of guilty or not guilty for Nick, so he asked for the official arraignment to be pushed to January 7th. The judge allowed that. Now, the only time that we heard from Nick during this hearing is when the judge asked him if he was okay with waiving his right to a speedy trial, and this is what he said.
Mr. Reiner, you have a constitutional and statutory right to speedy arraignment. You're counsel requesting that your arraignment be continued to January 7, 2026. Do you waive your right to a speedy arraignment so that your arraignment can be heard on January 7, 2026?
So what you heard there, quote, "Yes, Your Honor." That's it. Now, the hearing was very brief, and now January 7th is circled as a day where those cameras will return to Los Angeles to see what happens next in court. Now, on the topic of Alan Jackson, before we get back to specifically Nick Reiner, one question that I know I've wondered is just how much could this defense cost? Jackson is one of the biggest names in criminal defense, and it's unclear what Nick Reiner really did for work. He certainly lived in an incredibly wealthy family. He apparently lived in his parents' guest house. He also worked with his dad on a movie that was released in 2016 that we're going to talk about in just a moment. Prosecutors and police have been very vague. They have been tight-lipped about this case, but there's been so much reporting that has come out through media outlets like TMZ and People reporting that the couple had their throats slit in their home. Well, now we're learning more official details about how the couple died. The medical examiner says the couple received, quote, multiple sharp force injuries. Multiple, a key word there. Police have said that the alleged murder weapon was a knife, but they have not confirmed if they actually still have that murder weapon and if it was a knife that came from a home or was it one that the alleged killer brought into the house. About where the Reiners were found in the home. Now, we know that they were killed after a holiday party that was at the home of Conan O'Brien on Saturday night. And the Hollywood Reporter put out a big story that gave some background, some context, some specifics about what allegedly happened during this party that led to an incredibly loud argument, very public argument at this party between Nick and his dad, Rob. Now, we do know that Nick struggled with addiction since he was a teenager. He told people in 2016 that he first went to rehab when he was just 15 years old, and he had to go back to rehab more than a dozen times. He also said that he spent time homeless as he struggled with addiction in Maine and New Jersey and Texas. And there's also reporting that Nick's parents were growing more concerned with his state of mind recently. The Hollywood Reporter article that talks about the Conan O'Brien holiday party says that Nick actually wasn't on the invite list, but his parents, they were, and they asked Conan if it would be okay for their son to tag along, and Conan reportedly said yes. It does appear, though, that things got awkward and disturbing very quickly at this party. Nick was reportedly described as being erratic and is said to have wandered around this party where there are a lot of celebrities, and he was interrupting conversations. The Hollywood Reporter said that Nick demanded to know which partygoers were famous. Now, the article also goes on to say that Nick was reportedly acting so odd that some people at this party who didn't know who he was, they were wondering if this was a person who wandered in off the street. Here's the part of the story, though, that really stood out to me, because one of the people who Nick allegedly asked if they were famous was actor, comedian, former SNL star Bill Hader. The reporter writes, quote, Hader calmly responded to Nick that he was engaged in a private conversation. This is according to someone with knowledge of the situation. Nick glared at him for what felt like an uncomfortable amount of time, end quote. That really paints a picture of just how Nick seemed to have been acting in the hours surrounding the time that police now say he killed his parents. And that loud argument that made headlines, that was allegedly because Rob was confronting Nick about just how rude and bizarre he was acting at this party. Police and prosecutors have yet to officially give a time of when the Reiners were killed, but it obviously happened after this party, and perhaps it happened before 4 o'clock in the morning, because that is when media outlets are reporting that Nick checked into a hotel in Santa Monica, which is about 4.5 miles from his parents' house in the Brentwood neighborhood of Los Angeles. He reportedly checked into this hotel with a credit card. And then what staff found the next day is incredibly disturbing. Staff, when they went into the room to clean up the next day, they say they found blood all over the room in this hotel. The bed sheets also were covering the windows. So just an incredibly disturbing scene. Now, again, he checked into this hotel around 4 o'clock in the morning on Sunday. His parents were not found until 3:30 in the afternoon that day. According to KTLA, the couple was found dead in their bed. They had been stabbed multiple times. A massage therapist reportedly couldn't get in touch with the Reiners, so it was their daughter, Romy, who reportedly lived across the street, according to People, who went into the house and discovered what had happened. She apparently only saw her dad, Rob. And this part is just incredibly incredibly sad, and you can't imagine what it would be like, because it's being reported she didn't know that her mom was also dead. And first responders had to tell her that news later. Now, when the bodies were discovered, Nick was nowhere to be found, and Romy apparently was aware of the issues with her brother. And according to TMZ, she suggested that her brother was dangerous and he may have something to do with what had happened to her parents. Now, take a look at this here. Very important surveillance video that has come to light, because this is Nick Reiner hours later at a gas station near the campus of the University of Southern California. This is Sunday evening around a spot called Exposition Park, roughly 15 miles from his parents' home. This was shortly before he was arrested by the LAPD around 9:30 Pacific Sunday night. NBC Los Angeles was the first outlet to get this video, and you can see Reiner's wearing a jacket and a hat. He has a red backpack. He appears to buy a Gatorade, and he walks across the street, and that is when you see the lights and the sirens and the LAPD pulling up and putting him under arrest. It's unclear what Nick's defense may look like going forward, especially if this case makes it to trial. But at the center of this case will be issues that he had in his life.
So what are we at Southern Sin to make of all this? Let's listen in to Brian Enton Investigates.
Maureen, the medical examiner has come back and said that it was multiple sharp force injuries was the cause of death. What does that mean to you?
It means they were stabbed multiple times each, and that could also mean, the throat was slashed, and then they were stabbed multiple times. It could mean anything along those lines.
What we heard initially was that the throat was slashed, but I guess
Right.
if they're saying multiple, could that mean, I guess the throat was slashed and then also other stab wounds, you think?
Right. It could be, his rage was such that he cut their throats, or let's say, talked about his dad first, cut his father's throat, and then, sort of stopping the threat of his dad fighting back with him, and then went back and stabbed him multiple times in a fit of rage.
There's been some reports that they were stabbed in bed. And what would that mean? I mean, I guess, would that mean premeditation, like you thought about it because the person was going to be asleep?
It's absolutely premeditation. And it's also attacking someone who is not in a position to defend themselves. I mean, where is there a place that you feel more safe than snuggled in your bed, and then to be attacked like that? It's just beyond belief.
What do you think about they haven't released many details about the timeline, but where does your mind go with timeline here? I mean, do you think this happened right after the Conan O'Brien party? Like, how do you think this played out?
I would say it happened within hours of that Conan O'Brien party, within hours of them returning home. And he just couldn't take it that he was embarrassed again in front of people. And his father took the side of the people he was fighting with instead of taking his side. And he just got all lathered up. And, he could have gone into into the guest house first before he came back. I don't know. I had this sense initially that it happened in the kitchen, but now knowing that they had been dead for some time, it's making me think more and more that it was late at night after the party. Because we heard also, remember, Brian, we heard that the daughter couldn't get in touch with them for a while, so she went over there to see.
Yeah, and the new reporting today is that she saw her dad and then ran out, and it was the paramedics who later told her about her mom, which is just so sad to think about.
Unbelievable. And I'm wondering if that lady in the brown that we saw yesterday walking up and down, I wonder, is that her roommate?
I was wondering if that was some kind of assistant, because she didn't really look that emotional. I don't know. She kind of seemed like she was on a mission to me to like go get stuff.
Me too.
So I kind of thought maybe that was like the lawyer's assistant or someone's assistant, but I have no idea. It was interesting to see that action outside the house, though.
Yeah.
In terms of an insanity defense, do you think that's what is being set up here?
Yes. And I think the first salvo was when they said he's on suicide watch. Why didn't he commit suicide before he committed a double homicide? I just think when you look at the videos of him and you hear a lot of the way he talks, Yeah, there's mental health issues, but for him to, I know exactly where that gas station is that he walked to. For him to walk there, he doesn't look like he has a care in the world. And then he could have easily then walked all the way to that hotel. Then he gets to the hotel and he has the presence of mind to put those sheets up on the window, which all my contacts at the hotels are telling me that's what people do when they're just planning a bender, like a 3-day bender on drugs. Lots of cocaine. I don't know why you would put sheets on the window for cocaine, but okay. And then take a shower because he didn't want to be uncomfortable with dried blood on him. So he took a nice shower. He understood that. He understood he had to create distance between him and the crimes. And then he decided it was time to go score some dope, in my opinion. So he took the metro in Santa Monica over near USC, got off, and, went into that convenience store probably after or maybe before he scored some dope and he was getting ready.
All right, y'all, gather around because
You'll notice LAPD talked about a narcotics unit going after him. I think that was a brilliant move on the part of LAPD, and I'll tell you why. Because those narco guys, I worked narcotics for 19 years. They know exactly where to go. They know where these guys are slinging dope, and they know where this guy is going to go to get it. And the way they know that is because he's probably been arrested multiple times in certain very small areas when he's scoring dope, when he's, throughout his life, when he's been doing this stuff. So if you run someone's name in the system, you can find out obviously where they've been arrested, how long ago it was, who was with them, etc. So they can see, let's say he was arrested one time with a guy named John Doe, and John Doe slings dope on the corner of Florence and Normandy or whatever, and that's where they went to look for him, and sure enough, they found him because they found him. They found him pretty quickly, considering he was on foot.
I was wondering how they would find him so quickly on foot like that, just on the side of the road. Do you think someone called it in?
Yeah, well, they figured, hey, every time we catch him, and I'm just guessing based on my personal experience working narcotics, they probably said, 3 out of the 10 times we arrested this guy, he was found right here in the same spot. So let's put a team over there. The other time he was right over there by USC. And on the other occasion, he was getting off the metro. So they probably guessed he went, especially when they found out what hotel he was in. They knew he went to that hotel because he could take the metro because his family said he didn't drive, or I guess his family friends told me he didn't drive as a general rule. So
that makes sense then that he would take the metro.
Mm-hmm. And it's a great way to get out of Dodge quickly.
Yeah. The reports of all the blood in the hotel room, it's gruesome to talk about, but I guess I'm just trying to understand, if the stabbing happened at their house, why would there be so much blood in the hotel?
Well, if he stabbed them without a winter jacket, without his jacket on, because we saw him wearing, those jacket things, whatever they were, he would have blood all over his clothing and it would still be wet to a certain extent. And if he was, let's say, who knows, maybe he already had a little bit of dope on him and he was laying on the bed, just getting high, enjoying a buzz and rolling around or whatever, or he took his clothes off, threw them on the bed to take a shower. Then he comes out, lays on the bed and he's wet, and who knows how thorough of a shower he took, or to have blood on the linens could also mean the towels. So he could have walked in, washed his hands, grabbed a hand towel, which are usually white, and dried his hands off and arms, and then realized, I still have blood on my arms. I just washed my hands. I got to take a shower. I got to whatever it is. And then if he doesn't take a thorough shower and he gets out, he may not realize how much blood he has in his hair, or he's got that thick black hair. He could have had way more blood in his hair than he thought, and maybe in washing his face, he just got his hair wet and didn't wash his hair because he was planning on going downtown anyways. And who wants to be out all night? He was homeless. He knows going out all night with a wet head of hair, you're going to freeze, and he may not want to check in anyplace else because he's on the run. So he may have just gotten his hair wet in the shower just from taking a general shower, and then realized there was hair all over it, or blood all over. It could have just been blood on the pillowcase from that. It could have been blood on a hand towel from that. Or he laid on the sheets to cop a buzz after he got out of the shower and he didn't do a good job. There's a lot of things. And then he took that top sheet, I believe it was a top sheet, and put it up over the windows.
Just to block people from seeing inside.
Block people from seeing inside or any, yeah, just, they like the cocoon feeling. But they all have blackout curtains, so that's kind of weird,
Yeah.
Think of a hotel room that doesn't have blackout curtains. I can't think of one.
Do you think that he really thought he was going to get away with this, or was he just on a bender and like not really thinking that clearly?
I don't know. I don't know him. I would say he realized he was in a world of hurt because he was that little bit of distance wasn't enough. He just probably felt like he had to go to ground and he would figure it out. But then he realized the only people that were really going to help him would be his parents, and that wasn't going to work anymore. And I did hear initially that he put his house up for to secure a bond, but the family rejected that. But I haven't seen that corroborated anywhere.
Have you heard anything from your sources about the state of the bodies, like how long they may have been dead?
I just heard that it was a while. It was longer than originally thought. That's all I heard. So I don't know. That's not very definitive.
Can they tell though, like if it's been can they actually tell the difference between like 2, 4, 6, 8 hours?
Yes, absolutely, 100%. And LA's got the greatest MEs and the detectives are good. See, the blood will coagulate at a certain rate based on the temperature. The blood will have a thick, like the top of it will dry first. Even if blood is mixed together, it will just coagulate very nicely and in a very uniform way based on the conditions within the house, and that's humidity, heat. The floors could be colder, so all that is taken into account, and also the temperature of the liver is a great determinant factor. Also, lividity. They'll be able to see the blood will settle within the body and turn purple, yellow, green, whatever those colors are, depending on how long it's been there. That's one of the ways you can determine if, in fact, the bodies were moved later. So if you have a body that has a bunch of lividity on the back, but the victim is on its stomach, that body was moved. All the blood settled and really settled into the body, and then it was flipped over onto its stomach, and at that point it was no longer pulsating through the system, so it's going to stay stuck in that situation.
In terms of DNA, is that not really going to be that helpful to prosecutors because he lived there?
No, it's going to be super duper helpful.
It will? I mean,
absolutely.
But why? Because couldn't his defense just say, well, he lived there, of course his DNA is everywhere?
I'm talking about blood mixed in with the blood on scene. When you attack someone with a knife, unless it has a hilt on it, and for those that don't know what a hilt is, I'm looking to see if I have a knife with a hilt, and I do not. But a hilt is that it would be like that metal piece like this on a knife, and this hilt stops your hand from sliding forward onto the blade when you're in a fight, when you're in a knife fight. A K-bar knife has a hilt on it. That's the one that was used in the Idaho killings. That one had a hilt on it, but he still cut his hand, because when you're in a knife fight, there is a very good chance that you are going to cut yourself. He was probably fighting with his father. His father was a big, strong man. His mother looked like she was in great shape. They both did yoga all the time. It probably wasn't as easy as some might think, unless they were sound asleep. But even still, if he was stabbing them afterwards multiple times, there's a very good chance that he cut himself. So now we have, even if we don't find the weapon, you'll have his blood and, let's say, his father's blood mixed together and coagulated together. It's not in a place where you could. So if there's let's say there's a puddle of blood and Alan Jackson is trying to say, oh, they came back and poured blood over it just like they did in the OJ case. That isn't what happens, because the first blood will have that coating on top as it begins to coagulate, and the blood will almost be in a separate layer. So if if you have Nick's blood mixed in with his mom's blood, and it's all in the same, it's all in the same puddle, let's say, there's no way you can say that he was not there, and there's no way that you cannot say that he wasn't there and bleeding at the exact same time that those people died. And there's really only one reason that someone's going to be bleeding like that: when someone is being stabbed. And then the other reason it's going to be important is because there's a thing in forensics called voids. So if there's a big bloody battle, we're going to look at the shoe impressions or the foot impressions on the ground, because oftentimes the defense will say, oh, there was another person there. He just happened to be standing there and he was trying to defend his parents. Well, there's no footprints, no shoe impressions, and the blood pattern completely contradicts what you say, because the blood pattern will show over and over and over cast off blood all over the floor, and it will only show their 3 footprints. If, let's say, they were all in the kitchen fighting, you'd be able to determine that it was just those 3 people in the kitchen fighting with the knife. Does that make sense?
Yeah, no, it makes sense. I'm wondering if the defense could be, though, if they were in the bed, could they say, well, he came home, he found them stabbed in the bed, freaked out, and went on this drug bender because he's got all these issues, and went to the hotel and was just in a state of shock. I mean, you think that?
No, because I think they're going to find his blood too. And the other thing is, don't forget bloody fingerprints. Once he's in that battle, you could have Nick's fingerprints with his father's blood on the countertop, or Nick's fingers with his mother's blood and his father's blood on a countertop. That puts all 3 of them in the exact same location at the exact moment of the attack. It's indisputable. That's what I'm hoping for.
When you've worked cases with, I mean, this is going to be a strange family dynamic because he's got these siblings now, and he allegedly killed their parents, but I don't know if they're still somewhat supportive of their brother, or I don't know, because I have no idea. But how do you think that's going to work? I mean, are they going to, based on what you know,
It's going to be messy.
are they going to come around and want to pay for the lawyer? Or like, how does
No,
it play out, do you think?
absolutely not. Why would they?
True crime just got darker. Catch the full episode on the link above. Subscribe to At Southern Sin today and hit the notification bell for more live original episodes Wednesdays at 8 p.m. True crime just got darker. Catch the full episode on the link above. Subscribe to At Southern Sin today and hit the notification bell for more live original episodes Wednesdays at 8 p.m.